So with great enthusiasm for a couple of different reasons. One is that Citizens has been an incredibly generous donor to not only the Greater Cleveland Food Bank, but other food banks across Northeast Ohio, and frankly, hunger relief organizations nationwide for a very long time. Citizens has been supporting the Greater Cleveland Food Bank for more than 20 years, every year. And that kind of consistency and generosity really just means the world to us. We also were thrilled to highlight our partnership in other ways. We've had a number of Citizens leaders, local presidents who've served as co-chairs of our Harvest for Hunger campaign over the years. For those of you who are not familiar, Harvest for Hunger is one of the largest employee food and funds drives in the nation, and finding the right corporate co-chairs for that effort is always very important, and Citizens has many times stepped up. We also have a local Citizens leader serving on our board of directors, Matt Mueller, these days, and he has been a wonderful addition. In addition to that, we also were very excited to have Claire Babineau-Fontenot come to Cleveland. She'll get introduced later, but Claire is the new CEO of Feeding America, such a wonderful addition to our national organization. So we loved having the opportunity to show her what we do right here, and also to host Erica Greeley, who's out there in the audience somewhere. There she is in the back. Erica is Feeding America's VP of Ending Hunger, I think. What a title, right? Really important title, and a pretty extraordinary human who I have had the chance to get to know over the last couple of years. So this day is just really exciting for all of us. You know, while we all wish that hunger weren't the issue that it is in our community and in our nation, with 1 of 5 children being food insecure in the 6 counties served by the Greater Cleveland Food Bank, we are enormously grateful to have such committed partners in the fight against it. Cleveland has the highest child poverty rate of any big city in the nation, and we know that this is an issue we cannot begin to tackle alone. So many of our nonprofit colleagues who are also working in this space have also joined us today because they are also partners of Citizens, and so I want to thank you all. Together, we reached more than 350,000 residents last year with nutritious, free food to try to make sure that they have the nutritious food they need today, while also working together to connect people to not only benefits, to improve household stability, but other nonprofit partners to help reduce the root causes of hunger. And that's work that we're excited about, and where we know we can have some long-term impact. We've been helping low-income eligible residents apply for SNAP and other benefits for nearly a decade here in Cleveland. But it's only recently that we started thinking about how the food bank could move beyond this Ending Hunger Today work to think about how we can end hunger tomorrow. And we believe that this Connecting Clients work, in partnership with so many of you out there, holds a lot of promise. I had the wonderful opportunity to participate in Feeding America's early Ending Hunger Advisory Committee when they were first going down this path. And when it started a few years ago, it was 14 food bank CEOs with an interest whose food banks had kind of waded into these waters, and Erica. And just a couple weeks ago, I had the chance to go to a meeting, a Feeding America meeting, with the new Ending Hunger Community of Practice, and we had more than 100 food bankers there. And so certainly this is exciting work for all of us, and I think so many are seeing the potential and realizing that we have a real responsibility to address this issue. So it's exciting to learn from each other, from other national experts in this space, and also for us to participate in a household empowerment pilot, which you'll learn a little bit more about today. That is going to give us the opportunity to help working poor families move towards food security, and also help us share those learnings with others. So it's my pleasure now to introduce Jim Maltz, the Midwest Regional Executive Ohio Market President for Citizens Bank. Jim is a veteran commercial banker who's held key roles in management positions with a number of banks across our state. He has degrees from Hiram, with some additional coursework at John Carroll, my alma mater, and he served on a number of boards, including the Children's Hunger Alliance, which is a partner as well. So thanks so much, Jim.
Thanks, Kristen. Appreciate the warm intro and the hospitality here. As I look around the room, for me personally, it's great to be re-engaged back in the Cleveland community. A lot of you know me that I'm very engaged, have been, always will be, and dare I say go Browns, but go Browns. Anyway, it's not about that. What really I see here today is a great model here at the Cleveland Food Bank. Kristen, thank you for your leadership over the years, and happy 40 years. Let's round of applause. And Claire, thank you for your leadership at Feeding America, a phenomenal organization that's doing really great work across the country as we desperately need it. You know, I've been here in this role now for about 6 weeks at Citizens Financial Group, but I got to tell you, it's amazing what I see. The culture is phenomenal. We have all the great colleagues in our footprint that do great work in our community, some of which are here today, volunteered. I know they volunteered earlier this morning, so thank you for doing that. Matt, thank you for being on the board here as well. That's awesome. Our team is just not about writing checks and throwing dollars around, although that's probably music to your ears, but it's also really about getting engaged, volunteering. And what's near and dear to my heart, which was a huge bonus to me because I really didn't know this until I joined, is fighting hunger. I've been on so many boards, Children's Hunger Alliance. My first board here in Cleveland was the Hunger Network of Greater Cleveland many moons ago. But it's near and dear to my heart. It's great to see that our great institution holds this front and center as well. To me, it all starts with the basic need, and that's fighting hunger. We need to do it. It's amazing to me how many children and adults go hungry each and every day, and a lot of us take it for granted. So do all you can do to fight it, beat it, and conquer it, because we're going to do it. So it is my privilege, though, here today to introduce to you our chairman and CEO, Bruce Van Saun, who's here for the day, doing great work on behalf of our colleagues, our clients, and of course the community. Bruce has been at the helm for about 6 years now. He led the IPO evolution in terms of spinning off from RBS and managing now for 5 years and doing great things for not only our firm and our shareholders, but for our clients and for our communities. So Bruce, with that, I want to welcome you to the stand. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. It's really great to have attracted a banker of your caliber to lead our efforts here in Cleveland. And I don't know, being called a veteran, though, that makes you sound a little old, though. But Kristen, thank you for those nice introductory remarks. And thank you to all our partners here today. Thank you for all our colleagues who turned out to volunteer some of their time. So it's really great to be here. Just give you a few words about Ohio. It's really an important market for us here at Citizens. So we have about 1,000 colleagues across Ohio. We have 80 branches in Northeast Ohio, 50 of those right here in Cleveland. We've got commercial teams now under Jim who cover all of the corporate market here in Ohio. We have Ralph Delarada. Where's Ralph? Ralph right here leads our M&A boutique, Western Reserve Partners, also based here in Ohio. And then we have many of our great partners like Greater Cleveland Food Bank. It's always great to visit and see what you're up to. You know, overall, we have a broad initiative at Citizens that we call Citizens Helping Citizens that focuses on key areas of need. Those are fighting hunger, promoting financial literacy, and then strengthening our communities. And so we have a comprehensive program overall that positions us to better leverage the tools and resources that we can bring to the table. And I was speaking with Clara earlier this morning, that focus, making sure we're focused and we're not too diffused, I think actually adds to our effectiveness. So when you look at what we do, we provide funding. So this year we're on track to deliver over $14 million in funding, which can help establish programs and also promote some new programs as we're announcing here today. We also offer leadership to many of our partners. As you heard, we have a board member here, but we have over 750 of our executives across Citizens that are serving in the board capacity for the nonprofits partners that we have across the footprint. We also have our colleague base who really has personalized this as part of our DNA is to really volunteer and make a difference in our communities. We're on track this year, hopefully, to hit 150,000 volunteer hours. So really goes to the core of Citizens. So one of our primary areas of focus and giving is fighting hunger. We all know food insecurity is a common challenge that all of our communities face. It's also the topic, I would say, that our colleagues are most engaged with when we think about all that we do. And so far, we've reaffirmed our commitment to this issue by, in 2018, announcing a $1 million national partnership with Feeding America to fight hunger. And we're going to re-up that here today. But in 2018, through that grant, we've been able to fund over 30 programs in 21 markets across the country. And the renewed funding that we're announcing today, we're going to up that to 32 programs in 23 markets. So it's really great to have that partnership and really magnify the impact that we're having. The work is far from over, though. We continue to make progress on this issue each year, but the facts are still the facts. 37 million Americans are living in food insecure households. 1 in 9 Americans are at risk of hunger. More than 11 million children are living in food insecure households. The downstream impacts of food insecurity are really very far-reaching. When a person goes through the day not knowing when their next meal will come, their ability to exceed mentally, physically, academically, economically is severely diminished. And these effects also lead to high levels of unemployment, financial troubles, and chronic illnesses. So while poverty, income, and demographics are sure factors tied to food insecurity, the need for action remains clear. That's why I'm so pleased to be here today to announce another annual commitment of $1 million to Feeding America. This commitment to Feeding America is vitally important as the funding both supports local programs throughout our footprint, including a new initiative that we're also pleased to speak about today called Ending Hunger. Feeding America's Ending Hunger program ties together all 3 of our priority giving areas by working closely with families to learn more about barriers to food, as well as encouraging collaboration with other community partners. And that collaboration would extend to housing, to health, and to employment services. In addition to national funding, I'm also pleased to announce that we'll be supporting the Greater Cleveland Food Bank with an additional $50,000 contribution to support its local Ending Hunger pilot program. Now, the Greater Cleveland Food Bank is a top partner with Feeding America on this important work. I look forward to having our partners discuss the objectives of the program, but now I'd like to, very privileged to announce introduce the Feeding America CEO, Claire Babineaux-Fontenot. Claire oversees, before you stand up, Claire, I have a little bio information here to read about you. She oversees the nation's largest domestic hunger relief organization and the second largest U.S. charity. It's very impressive. Feeding America is a nationwide network of 200 food banks and 60,000 food pantries and meals programs. Together, the Feeding America network provides more than 4 billion meals to more than 46 million people across the country. Claire has been a tireless advocate for fighting hunger for all her life. And with that, Feeding America CEO, Claire Babineaux-Fontenot.
Wow. So it's always a little unsettling for me when I have the opportunity to visit a food bank, especially a food bank like the Greater Cleveland Food Bank, when I have an opportunity to be in the room with people like those people who are assembled today. People usually thank me for being here. And I find it interesting and maybe even just a little odd when I contemplate my great privilege, which is to serve as the CEO of Feeding America. When I contemplate what needs to be done, and when I think about whom it is that makes all of the things that get done happen, they would be people like you, Kristen, and your team. They'd be people like you, Bruce. And they'd be all the other people who are assembled in this room. So I thank you for the privilege of having been invited, for the privilege of being in your company today. Now, it was a long road for me to get here. And I mean that both figuratively and literally. You see, my journey to this podium started even before I was born, in a little town called Opelousas, Louisiana, agricultural town in south central Louisiana. It was in Opelousas that I learned about Zydeco music. I don't know if you've heard of it. About gumbo, about the magic of okra, about sweet potatoes, where I learned how to dig them, and certainly learned how to eat and appreciate them. And where I learned about a term that we call lagniappe, which the technical translation being a little something extra, but at its core, lagniappe is really about grace, about people doing for other people things that they couldn't require. So when I get invited to speak to audiences like this one, audiences who practice lagniappe every day, I feel privileged and honored. Now, living in Opelousas, I also learned about what families around the United States were accustomed to telling their picky eaters. Now, you can raise your hand if you'd like, if your mom or someone in your family ever told you, you better eat that food. You know, there are hungry children in Africa, in China. What is curious about that expression for me is my whole life I've understood that we don't have to look to distant shores to find hungry children. There are hungry children in America. Now, it's said that this journey started before I was born, because when my mom was pregnant with me in 1963 in the fall, yes, I always acknowledge I am 55 and proud of it, and counting, yay. In the fall of 1963, when my mom was pregnant with me, she found out that there were 2 little kids in a neighboring town in desperate need of help, children who suffered. And my mom, who was not able to look past a child in need, with my father off at work in Baton Rouge, got in the car, picked the babies up, and brought them home. When my dad got home, his family had doubled. Now, my dad's a smart man, so he knew not to question Mary Alice Babineaux. What neither of them ever imagined would be that over the course of my mother's lifetime and my mother and father's lives together, that they would be mom and dad to over 108 children, including the very, very privileged me. I often say that I get invited to give speeches like this one, and as honored as I am to give speeches like this one, the greatest honor that I will ever have is that I provided the induction speech keynote when my parents were inducted into the National Hall of Fame. So growing up in our household, as children came in, sometimes 1 by 1, sometimes 2 by 2, sometimes 3 by 3, I saw and I came to understand hunger here. I also came to understand the restorative power of nutritious food. I watched frail bodies become strong. I watched as my siblings and I went off to fulfill our greatest potential. And I saw the power of just a few people, the children of sharecroppers, my mom and dad. Neither of them graduated from high school. And I thought, if my mom and dad, considering the challenges that they removed from my life, could do the things that they did, then what could I do? So I decided I was going to be a lawyer. So I went to my dad and I told him, and I was going to be a children's rights advocate. So I went to my dad and I said, hey, Daddy, when I grow up, I'm going to be a lawyer. And he said, well, Clarice, you argue all the time. At least that way, somebody's going to pay you to do it. But when I imagined that I'd be a lawyer, I didn't think that what I'd wind up doing was being a tax lawyer. But I did. I didn't imagine that I'd be a judge. I didn't imagine I'd be a gubernatorial appointee, that I'd work in a Big Four accounting firm, that I work in a large law firm, and I certainly didn't imagine that I'd find myself to be the executive vice president of finance at Walmart. That was not the path I thought I was supposed to be on. I thought I knew the path. And I asked myself, why? Every time, why that? Why this one? Why that one? And now here I am after this long journey, and I know exactly why. I know why all of those things happened. Every day I get an opportunity to use something that I learned along the way. Every day I get an opportunity to talk to a friend that I met, to get advice, to understand more deeply the challenges that people facing hunger confront. Every day I have an opportunity to meet people like Bruce, to think about what Citizens is doing, to understand, because I served on the foundation board at Walmart, to understand how challenging it can be when you desperately want to do good, and when there's so many organizations who truly want to do good also, how to choose among organizations that really want to do the right thing, and how to find those rare organizations that not only wish to do good, but that can quantify the good that they do. I'm the CEO at Feeding America because I know that Feeding America is absolutely one of those organizations. And the reason that we are is because of teams like the team here at Greater Cleveland Food Bank. We talked about the challenges, and you mentioned some of them. 37 million people in the richest country in the history of civilization do not have consistent access to nutritious food. 11 million children. For some, that might seem daunting, but it's not daunting for us. Because we know some other statistics too. Like we know that 72 billion pounds of perfectly edible food go to landfills every year. not counting household waste. And we know that's a problem waiting to be solved by people like you in this audience. There's a way to match hunger against food waste. Feeding America actually rescues at least 3.5 billion pounds of food that would otherwise go to landfills today. And we have line of sight on how to do even more, and we will do more. So when you've got a tough challenge, I kind of think of it like an elephant. And now, Jim, you know how to eat an elephant? You do it one strategic bite at a time. That's exactly right. Now, I mentioned the things I learned in my childhood in Opelousas, and I even mentioned okra. Well, some of you who have heard me speak before may know that okra has begun to become a bit of a symbol of the movement, my personal symbol of the movement for me. Because okra is indigenous to Western Africa. And you may or may not be aware that the way that okra got here was that seeds of okra were planted inside of the hair of slaves coming into America. And those seeds were planted in the United States. That's one connection. Another is, does anyone know French in here? Do you know what the French word for okra is? Gumbo. So there are lots of reasons. But another reason is because okra has taken on a really symbolic quality in Africa and in African nations. And there are proverbs that come out of the symbolism attached to okra. So I want to share two of those proverbs with you before I close. And the first one is, an okra tree cannot grow taller than those who plant it. Feeding America understands that it's really important that we do a better and more efficient job of feeding people who are hungry. That we ought to, and we have the wherewithal to provide an increasingly nutritious mix of food to people who must rely upon the charitable food system. But as Bruce acknowledged, and Kristen did as well, we should be bigger than this. We're uniquely positioned to do something about the root causes of hunger itself. And we will, and we are. There are food bankers who've been in this work for a very long time. 28 of our food banks have job training programs. We have kitchens where we have culinary arts programs. We help with training for warehouse jobs. 50% of our food banks help with SNAP application assistance. Case management and wraparound services are something that we do in a number of our food banks. And you talked about communities of practice. Well, one of the things that distinguishes Cleveland is the work that you're doing in one of those communities of practice, the Ending Hunger community of practice. And I will visit every single one of our 200 member food banks, because the people of those communities deserve to have the CEO of Feeding America come and visit every one of them. But I can't visit all of them at one time. And I have to make decisions about where I go first and then where I go second. And among my highest priorities was to come to food banks like this one. Food banks making an impact in all 4 of our pillars, like this one is. And I made a priority of coming to say thank you to partners like Citizens, partners who are looking comprehensively at how to be a part of the systemic changes that need to happen as people confront hunger. So now, a final proverb about, you gonna guess? Okra. One finger alone cannot eat okra. When I had the opportunity to give my very first address to food bankers after joining Feeding America as its CEO. It was in Phoenix, and in fact, I met a couple of people that are in this audience in Phoenix that day. And I gave a challenge coin out that day, and the front of the challenge coin just said what the occasion was, our annual meeting, and on the back of it, it had that same proverb on the back of it. And what that proverb really means at its core, and just to be sure, now the first one, we all are aware that the essence of that proverb means is, if you're not shooting for the stars, you're never going to leave the earth, right? The higher you reach, the more audacious your aspiration, the more likely that you will achieve more. We are being audacious in our reach, and we are achieving more as a result. Now, the second proverb, at its core, it's really about partnership. It's about the fact that we must work together in order to make positive change. No meaningful positive change worked or happened in a vacuum. So, when I have the good fortune and privilege to actually visit a food bank, and only when I have the good fortune and privilege to visit a food bank, I bring with me a little token. Kristen, would you come up here, please? All right, we're going to see how quick the audience is. So in here is a pen. Kristen, what is the pen of?
Well, it looks like okra.
This pen is my way of reinforcing Feeding America's commitment to be great partners with you in this work, and our way of saying thank you for everything that you do. And thank you so much to citizens for the privilege of being here to say thank you in person. I appreciate it. Thank you, Kristen.